Right. Okay, so today I'll be talking to you about climate change agreements. So for decades, economists have been exploring different set of policies that could deal with climate change. Today I will try to convince you that one of these policies is called border tax adjustment. But first, we need to ask, why should we care about climate change? And scientists have been warning us about the different implications. So, for instance, in the UK, the government is predicting an increase in summer mortality rates, an increase in coastal erosion, and overheating of buildings. And these predictions are with high confidence within the next 50 years. But how did we get here is because of the increasing carbon emission concentration. So if you think about this as the atmosphere pre-industrial levels, then we can see that the concentration has been increasing to 43% as we stand today, and scientists are warning us to stick to the threshold of 60%. Why? Because we need to maintain the increase in the temperature to 2 degrees by the end of the century, because it's doable and because it will minimize the effects of climate change, and because we now hit the 1 degree already a few days ago. So how can we do that? By reducing our annual emissions now in substantial level, so gradually up to 80% by 2050, and by doing this globally. What have we been doing so far? 23 years of negotiation, achieved only one single agreement in 5 years, achieving so little, and in 2 weeks' time, negotiators are meeting in Paris to agree on a long-term global agreement. And in preparation for this agreement, negotiators have been submitting their emission reduction plans, which will put us on this pathway of 3 degrees, way above what we need to do to reach the 2 degrees, and therefore we have global gap. Not only global gap, we have unrealistic plans. So for instance, in the UK, we're planning to drop our emissions from here down to this level. Only the green part of this is achievable, and the rest is actually not achievable due to policy gap. So here we have a problem. Okay, so why is it so difficult? It's not now, Paris is not now, not substantial, global, but we still have a problem. Is it because we're stupid? I would argue the opposite. The climate change has 2 challenges. First, leakage of benefits, which means that if we have some countries, I would call the good guys, would contribute to the climate change issue, then the benefits will accrue to everyone, and then we have the bad guys who has an incentive of not acting on climate change and enjoying the environmental benefits. The second challenge is leakage of bad. If the good guy country will reduce their emissions, then the price of oil will drop, and then the bad guy country will increase their emissions, and therefore we have shift of production and emission leakage. Okay, so how can the good guys reduce their own emissions? We economists, we love the tax. It's the word that gets us going. So we say, tax the emissions, and it will have firms going from fossil fuel-based to renewable-based production levels. And also, how can the good guys deal with the bad guys? By making their private incentives in line with the public interest. And how we can do that, which I'm trying to sell today, is border tax adjustment. More tax, happier economists. Right, so how the border tax adjustment work? The good guy country trading olive oil, taxing the emissions by £5. The bad guy country taxing their emissions £1. We have a tax gap, and therefore we have preferences for this firm. The good guy countries say, okay, if you want to trade in my country, then you either tax 5, or I will add 4 on the top of your £1, and therefore the border tax adjustment. Great. So, how can we assess the implication of this policy? We have this economic model. Forget about it. The welfare of each country is formed of consumer welfare, producer welfare, tax revenue for the government, and the pollution damages. And the tax revenue are emission taxes and border taxes. And how do we assess the size of the agreement? This is a very important question. Since there is no global authority, we have a game theoretic concept called stable agreement, which look at the intrinsic motivation to join the agreement. So a country is very selfish, and then how do you join, whether or not you join the agreement? And the results, we find that with tax agreements with BTA lead to global participation from 0 country and lead to a higher emission reduction. And on the economic side, because we are economists, the good guys would face an economic gain, or will have an economic gain. The bad guys would have an economic loss, and overall there will be some economic loss due to the loss of trade. But as it's well established in economics, the cost of acting on climate change now is far lower than the cost of acting in the future. So yes, the taxman can save the polar bears, and thank you very much.